Good afternoon, everybody. I would like to call the October meeting to order. Just for the record, we have 2 board members online, so we have 6 people present. Moving on to item number 2, adoption of the regular meeting agenda. I would entertain to accept the agenda as presented.
So moved.
It's been moved by Dr. Pingarelli. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Ramirez. Any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the question. All in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Moving on to the Pledge of Allegiance. We would like to invite Ms. Wendy Rook to come up and lead us in the pledge. Would everybody please stand, following by a moment of silence.
Join us for the pledge. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, moving on to item number 5. Ms. Markham, did you receive any corrections to the minutes? Hearing no corrections, I'd entertain a motion to approve the minutes as presented.
So moved.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All right, it's been moved by Mr. Kay, seconded by Dr. Pingarelli. Any discussion? I'll call for the question. All in favor of the minutes as presented, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, it passes unanimously. Moving on to the current events, Dr. Spurgeon.
Thank you, Chairman Straka. Just want to highlight a few things. You have a list there of a lot of the activities that were accomplished since our last meeting. We had 3 great tours, three great conversations. The first one was with Hans Dresneck of Abrazo Health, who went to our Southwest campus and got a chance to visit our medical assisting program and really got a hands-on bird's eye view, got a chance to sit down with some of our instructors and talk with them about the program, because as you may or may not know, Abrazo Health is going to be putting their brand new system just west and a little north of Palo Verde on the Southwest campus. And then on the north side of 10, Banner Health will be putting their new hospital there as well. So it's going to be a tremendous asset in resources for our medical programs there. And so just want to give him a shout out, because there were a couple things we were working on. And he made a couple of phone calls and sent a couple of emails while we were taking the tour and got some things solved. So we're proud of him. Secondly, we got a chance to meet with Ray Mcguire, who is the HR person from Nestle. And his team came down to tour the Southwest campus, looking at our energy and engineering facility and all of the equipment there. And one of the comments that one of the gentlemen made was, we've been to community colleges, 4 universities, and we've not been any place where you've seen such equipment like you have here on the Southwest campus, because their facility will be doing moving a lot of liquid. So they'll be doing filling of the jars of coffee creamer. Coffee bait, and so they're going to need a lot of folks to be able to run those kinds of machines, and their facility will be completely paperless. It'll all be run from a smart device through AI and technology and robotics, and so very happy with them. They were very pleased. And
Could you just repeat that one thing about what kind of systems they will have?
Moving liquid.
Paperless, very good.
Paperless. Yes, paperless. So you'll be able to do everything from your smart device. Robotics, loading, unloading, packing, manufacturing, all that's going to be done with AI. So we're very excited about that. And the third one was we had a chance to meet again with Scott Holman from TSMC on the Northeast campus, take a look at the hangar behind the Northeast campus, and begin talking about what that might look like in a build out for something that could be benefit for advanced manufacturing, AIT, AI, and things like that. So very excited about those 3 partnerships. Also had a chance to meet with Dr. Jim Dean, who was recently appointed the new superintendent at Dysart, and his cabinet, to talk about our partnerships and expand those partnerships and how we can work more collaboratively and collectively together. So very excited about that one. Also had a chance to go to 2 events with Agua Fria. I was invited by their superintendent, Dr. Eastlis, to attend their Hall of Fame, which was their inauguration, first one where they recognized 5 individuals for the Spirit of Southwest Award. Also got a chance to visit them for their State of the District address, which was fantastic, very well attended, and he gave an update on their performance and what their plan was strategically moving forward. Also had a chance to meet with Dr. Ray Rivera, EMCC president, and former Dr. Ruiz, GCC president, about our partnership and relationships and how we can more strategically align our programs and services to the benefit of our students. Also met with Dr. Tyner of Ottawa University, and we have a meeting set up with him with Surprise Economic Development to align some programs, looking at some adult education, and also Ottawa looking at potentially some of their first CTE program offerings there to start. And lastly, I had a chance, as you well know, I got approved by the ABEC board. So I'll be sitting on their board working with the Business and Education Coalition. And I met with Dick Foreman and project manager Deb Rader, and got a chance to get to know them and the work that they do here in the Phoenix area. So other than that, I'm going to leave everything right there. You got all the rest of it you can read yourself. So I've been real busy doing a lot of things and creating a lot of relationships and partnerships. And I said this once, I'll say it 50 times. It's some people know West-MEC, but some people don't know West-MEC. And so we're spending a great deal of time making sure people know, understand what we do and how we can work together as a community to make it better for kids.
Very good. Thanks. Any board members have anything to report? Mr. Kay?
No, it's October. Construction Career Days is coming up. I know a bunch of West-MEC and a lot of our satellite program students will be participating in that. They anticipate this will be the best one, biggest one ever. So if you haven't been to that thing, it's kind of a monstrous. Wear good shoes. You got to walk a bit. That's the only thing I know about.
All right. Anyone else? Anyone on the phone? Dr. Pingarelli, Mr. Miglarino?
Nothing for me.
I'm good.
All right, then let's move on to the consent agenda. Is there anything anybody would like pulled for discussion? Hearing nothing, I'd entertain a motion for approval of the consent agenda.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Moved by Mr. Kaltenbach, second by Mr. Miglarino. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, moving on to number 8. Ms. Markham, I have no cards for the public. Would anyone like to address the board and call for the public?
The public.
Okay, one last time. Anyone would like to address the board for call for the public? All right, moving on to item number 9. Mr. Williams.
Good afternoon, Chairman Straka, members of the board, Superintendent Spurgeon. This is my first business development and legislative update. Look forward to many more, and certainly want to publicly just express my appreciation for the opportunity to serve West-MEC in this capacity. It has been mock speed since the beginning, about a month and a half ago. You heard a little bit from Dr. Spurgeon in his update. I plan to really split these updates into 2, legislative updates and some of our business development efforts with community partners. So first off, with legislative topics, today the Arizona midterm general election is officially underway. Early ballots were mailed out today. It actually started September 23rd when ballots were mailed to active military and U.S. citizens overseas. But the general election is officially underway, and this is an important one. I checked my sample ballot, and there were over 90 items on the ballot, including the elected offices, propositions, justices, judges, and all that good stuff. So do your research, and obviously we want to make sure the public is well informed. And West-MEC is very engaged in and takes our responsibility to ensure that state leaders and lawmakers are equipped with the facts and understand the value of high-quality CTE and the Arizona CTED model. So Dr. Spurgeon and I have had numerous legislative visits with current legislators as well as candidates seeking office in Arizona. We're hosting a tour tomorrow at the Northwest Campus, a legislative tour. We extended that invite out to several legislators. Right now, I think we have 2 confirmed that will join us there tomorrow at the Northwest Campus, 1 to 3 p.m. We also have in November a legislative forum that is we're hosting in partnership with the Arizona CTED Consortium. And this is really, and with Joel's leadership and others within the CTED community, an opportunity to, it's CTE 101 for lawmakers and state leaders to learn about the value of career and technical education. They're going to hear from students. They're going to hear from the business community. We've got a representative from the Arizona Commerce Authority joining us as part of that agenda as well. Couple of updates legislatively. One thing that has changed since we last met is that the Empowerment Scholarship account has become law of the land. So those parents wishing to take advantage of the ESA option are able to apply to the Arizona Department of Education. That was in limbo the last time we met as a board. The other legislative item is, which still remains an unknown and a topic up for discussion, is the aggregate expenditure limit. This has been a topic as we've met with state leaders and lawmakers. We certainly think it's important to have that predictability and a sustainability, and essentially the aggregate expenditure limit is restricting us from accessing the funds that were approved by the last legislature. So we want to move that forward, and there's efforts to have the governor call a special session by the end of the year to reconvene the legislature to at least give us a year extension on that. Long term, we would like to see a permanent fix to the aggregate expenditure limit, which would have to go to the voters as that was a constitutional item from the 80s, I believe. Moving on to business development and engagement, as Dr. Spurgeon shared, we've been very engaged with current and future West Valley businesses. It's no secret that the West Valley is a hot spot. This is where businesses are looking to establish themselves and grow. And we want to make sure that West-MEC's top of mind when businesses are locating here. We want to be on the front end of that. We have engaged with the Arizona Commerce Authority to ensure that when businesses are engaged in those site selection meetings or prospecting, that we're at the table and we can articulate the value that West-MEC brings to the talent pipeline to ensure that they've got a prepared workforce. In addition to some of the larger businesses, the Nestle's, the TSMC's, the Core Power, the Abrazo Health, we also know that it's important to engage with our small business community. And we are engaged with a variety of, or multiple West Valley chambers, and we really see that as a portal to those small businesses that may otherwise not be connected to West-MEC and our programs and our students. So we're very active through the local chambers in committee work, and as well as giving presentations to their membership to ensure that the small business community is connected to West-MEC and the value that we bring. Looking ahead, all of this can be very complicated and complex. There's a lot of moving parts, so we know we need to be strategic about our community partnerships and how we engage with business and industry. So to that end, we're developing a set of partnership principles that will guide how, when, and if we engage in a strategic partnership with a business partner. And we've also began to define or categorize the involvement into one of three categories: as an impression, as an engagement, or as a strategic partnership. So impressions are those passing conversations about West-MEC and, oh, that sounds great, that would be cool, but doesn't necessarily get much traction behind it. And engagement is where we do have a little more traction. Maybe they're sitting on an advisory council, maybe they're participating in mock interviews with our students, but it's really not a whole lot more than that. A true strategic partnership involves articulation of the shared interest, how it aligns with West-MEC's mission and vision, what those measurable outcomes are. So we don't just see it through engagement, but we see it through to employing our students, or an articulate like we have with the independent electrical contractors, where we've gotten an agreement where our program counts as 1 year of that apprenticeship toward guaranteed employment. So a lot going on, a lot to be proud of, and I'm very happy to be part of telling the West-MEC story. With that, I would stand for any questions as it relates to legislative items or business development.
When are you having the legislative one in November?
November 17th, it's virtual from 8:30 a.m. to 10 a.m. And we'll make sure that you get the link for that if you want to join.
And how many, have we got any response, or has that gone out yet? Or
The registration was just created, Joel. right? Has that gone out yet?
The registration, yes, has gone out, and so people are now registering. I don't have a number of registrants. I may have it by the time we come up and talk about strategic plans.
We're actively pushing that and encouraging participation in that. We're optimistic for a pretty good turnout.
Okay. I might check with you and see who's registered and
Excellent.
maybe encourage others to do it.
Mr. Kent?
A question popped into my head, and I admittedly have not done much research on any of this on my own, and maybe you know, or maybe it's a thing you could look up for us. On the ESAs, if you were a charter parent or even a homeschool parent and you were using ESA dollars, could they use those ESA dollars to pay their West-MEC tuition?
Yes, and that actually is, if West-MEC is not able to claim ADM, which an ESA student would not be generating ADM, then they would have to pay for their high school tuition out of their empowerment scholarship account.
Okay.
So it's less about whether they're charter or it's whether or not they are exercising the ESA option.
And the next thing it occurred to me, I've not, honestly, not done any research on it. Can you be partial ESA? Like, can you claim some ESA dollars and be a public school student or anything like that?
You forego public
Okay.
school services if you claim ESA.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
A question, how do parents find out about that ESA? Are we communicating that to parents or parents, how do they go about, obviously, public schools, so?
I know that there has been some press releases through the Department of Education. It really wouldn't be something that initiates from West-MEC per se, but I know that there's been communication through the Department of Education. And beyond that, I'm not sure who would own the communication to make sure family, I mean, it's been pretty publicized if folks are looking at the media, but what that means and how that translates to their situation. There's some good information on the Department of Education's website, but I don't know how that's being distributed.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
I guess my question would be, what is the advantage of coming in as an ESA student? Because if we're going to forego the public funding, I think it's not a very good balance for us. Am I understanding that correctly?
It would, I don't know that if it, for West-MEC's purposes, if it generates the same funding. I know that the ESA is meant to be at about 90% of ADM for that student, but they would pay our established high school tuition for that program. But I don't know that one has an advantage for us over the other. It's really about how that suits that family's and that student's needs. Good questions.
Anything else? All right. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Welcome back.
Appreciate it.
All right, moving on to item number 9. Dr. Laura Jaime. Yeah.
All right. Good evening, Chairman Straka, governing board members, Superintendent Dr. Spurgeon. I'm happy to be able to present to you on something other than textbooks, so that's exciting. So I'm going to discuss with you guys about our Teacher Induction Academy. So this is our teacher mentorship program with a purpose. And why do we have our teacher induction program? Well, most of you know the majority of our teachers come from industry, so they have limited classroom experience. We have high expectations in job performance for all of our instructors, and they need instructional support and development and mentoring throughout that process. As you guys know, our core values, we truly believe that teachers make a difference here at West-MEC as our #1 core value. We also believe that all students can learn, that success leads to success, and we have high expectations for all of our staff members as well. Liza, who you'll hear from later, went through our teacher induction program and provided us with this quote about the instructional practices that she learned throughout that process, as well as being able to reflect and make an impact on her education moving from a classroom into the classroom from industry, but also she now is one of our instructional specialists. So you'll get to hear how she transitioned from a classroom teacher into an instructional specialist. So how do we do this? We provide our teachers with a personalized, ongoing, outcome-based program that we have developed with our induction program. And so what does that include? That includes professional development with partnership with Mr. Wayfield and his team, instructional support with the 7 instructional specialists that are in my department, as well as networking and mentorship. So they network with other teachers and collaborate across the district, as well as there's teacher leaders on all of the campuses as well. Now, this originally was a 3-year program, but one of the challenges we found throughout COVID was that we couldn't get subs to support our teachers when they were in professional development, as well as all the stress and everything that comes with being a classroom teacher, running a CTSO, work-based learning, all of that stuff. We realized that putting them through 3 years and all the content that we had with that was a lot, and so we extended it out to a 5-year program instead of just a 3-year program. So the first thing is that professional development. We want to lay that foundation with them with sound instructional practices through our CT delivery model. So giving them all the 4 components of the CT delivery model, allowing them to have community involvement, and integrating those core academic standards. So this is how our steps look right now. So we went from 3 series to 5 steps. We also implemented step 1 this year, which is completely different than the original process. And the main reason is that we were giving them 8 hours of professional development at each course, which they get in steps 2 through 5. But we wanted to give them a little bit more of bite-sized chunks. So we developed 4-hour professional developments for them in step 1, which also allowed them extra work time to work with their instructional specialists those additional 4 hours during those days, and giving them a little bit one-on-one support. So we give them some introductions to classroom instruction, lab safety and management, the work-based learning and advisory councils, and then that solid foundation of CTSOs and that solid foundation of CT essentials in general. After that, they go through steps 2 through 5. Those were our previous courses, and that they range from areas of serving exceptional students and rubrics and grading to professional skills. So even though we know all of them are important, we wanted to spread it out and give them everything in a more seamless process where they can absorb all the information at one time. So how do our targeted outcomes work? So after they take a professional development, the teachers have to implement something into their classrooms. So the teacher takes the PD. We develop targeted outcomes for every professional development that we have, and they are outcome-based. So they work with their coach to implement some type of strategy, different safety measure, doing a safety walk through their class or through their labs, different types of things for each of the badges. Then they submit their badge or targeted outcome through Canvas, and then their instructional specialist reviews the teacher submission and also does an observation of the teacher completing this task in class so that we know that they've actually implemented it. And then that submission either passes and they get to check that submission off, or if it's not yet successful yet, they work one-on-one with their instructional specialist, and then their instructional specialist has them resubmit, and they go through the process again until they've implemented that. Then we have our instructional support. We align all the knowledge that they gained within those professional developments and implement them into the classroom. So we have 7 instructional specialists, 6 that work with program-specific areas, and then we have 1 work-based learning instructional specialist who works with all of our programs to really have a focus of work-based learning within our programs. But they work with the teachers one-on-one by program as well as in collaboration clusters. We use the ONET collaboration cluster groups unless their group is really large, and then, so like dental's on their own because there's a lot of teachers, and vet's on their own because there's a lot of teachers. But we build their capacity to be self-directed and confident to lead their students. We provide them scaffold support of curriculum, instruction, and assessment because we absolutely want them to deliver, implement, and embrace professional development and reflective practices. So as instructional specialists, we guide them through developing those units and lessons, implementing those best practices so that they can fairly evaluate and maintain those high standards with all of their students. And over the past 2 years, we've implemented what we call the impact cycle. It's a research-based coaching model where they identify what their classroom looks like, getting a clear picture of reality. Most of these are done by recording the teachers and then having them watch back that 15-20 minutes that we recorded. Then with their instructional specialists, they develop a goal and implement an instructional strategy. And then the instructional specialist will go in and do observations and support the teacher to improve and collect data based around student performance and achievement so that they can implement those new strategies and have their students perform better than they did prior to implementing their goal. And then we also have that networking and mentorship piece. So we want to continue to have a culture of support and reflection and professional growth with all of our instructors, whether that's with their campus admin, their teacher academy cohort, or we have a lot of mentor teachers who are experienced teachers who've been with West-MEC for several years, who wanted to move into some of those leadership roles, and they will support the teachers through that. And so now I'm going to have Liza Molina and Dr. Erin Parsons come up. They will give you the perspective of our Induction Academy from, as I said, Liza was one of our hairstyling teachers and she moved into an instructional specialist. And then Dr. Parsons actually was an instructional specialist and moved into a campus administrator. So I will let them share their thoughts.
Good afternoon, Chairman Strika, board members, and Superintendent Spurgeon. My name is Liza Molina. I am a curriculum instruction specialist. I have been an instructor for the past 10 years, 3 of those at the West-MEC Southwest campus. Going through the Teacher Induction Academy was a critical part of my development as an instructor at West-MEC. TIA provided a space for me to reflect on my instructional practices and refine and enhance my teaching. Most of our instructors come straight from industry into the classroom. TIA supports new teachers in making the transition more seamless by allowing instructors to work one-on-one with their coach, focusing on best practices for the CTE classroom and lab. In my new role as an instructional specialist, I can provide instructors with the support and resources available through TIA and help them become more confident in their teaching. One of West-MEC's core values is the belief that teachers make the difference. TIA helps build capacity to ultimately provide West-MEC students with an impactful education by planning engaging lessons and more effectively using instructional time with students. Thank you for supporting the C&I department and our efforts to help teachers make a difference for their students.
Chairman Straka, governing board members, Superintendent Spurgeon. I've had the pleasure of being involved with the Teacher Induction Academy since it was kind of initially conceived in West-MEC. You know, frequently we say that we take people from industry and we can teach them to be teachers, but we can't replicate 25 years of experience. However, we're kind of hiding something in there because I also cannot replicate 25 years of teaching experience. There's a science behind it, and this is how we do it. And this is where we teach them the strategies that are going to make them successful in the classroom. Having moved from C&I into campus administration, what I've seen is just the tremendous growth in our teachers feeling the efficacy, in other words, that they can do it in the classroom, that they can make a difference in that student's life, so that they learn that strategy and they understand why they're applying that strategy to do all the amazing things that we do. But moving into administration, you know, it allows me to work in lockstep with the C&I department and understand where a teacher is on that cycle, so that we can align our efforts and make sure that we're getting the most impact for that student when they're in that classroom. So it's just great to have a nice plan and to be able to take that and spread it out over a time period and teach teachers how to teach. Thank you.
We will stand for questions.
Question, Dr. Laura, are all instructional specialists, do they all have teaching experience?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yep. Most of them came from industry, and then became CTE teachers. But they all have they all came from different places, different areas, different levels of experience.
Oh, okay. All right, thanks.
I just want a basic understanding. We hire someone and they start. How is the timing on this? I mean, how soon do they get in the classroom? How long do they have? I mean, all this stuff is wonderful, but I'm going, when do they start teaching?
Yeah. So
I don't know.
we like to, if we can find an instructor, we really like to bring them in like the March timeframe. And so at that time frame, we start getting them acclimated, working with their instructional specialists, taking those first initial PDs like CT Essentials, that type of thing, and getting them familiar with all of that.
So in March, but you're preparing them to be
Yeah.
ready for fall?
Yes. To prepare them to be able to start teaching their first cohort in August.
But not everybody comes in March.
Right.
So we have to make some adjustments.
If they come in March, let's say hairstyling, if I hire a hairstylist in March, do they shadow and actually do any partner teaching in that time frame before the year, so at least they have some experience before you throw them in a classroom?
We do like to get them to, partner teach or observe or be in the classroom as much as possible with the other hairstyling instructors. For that example, absolutely.
And then, I guess the other question I would have, and I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, that's exactly, I just want to know the day-to-day, how do they?
So on the day-to-day, how much of their day is teaching, how much is prep, how much is CTSO? I mean, they're not teaching for 8 hours, because when would they prep? And so that's kind of, how does this fit into their day, I guess is what I'm asking. It's like, they have CTSO, they have Induction Academy, they actually have students.
Depends on the program, because all of our programs have different time frames. But majority of the time frame, we have teaching and learning days. So we have four teaching and learning days plus a professional development teaching and learning day built into our schedule. So like this past Friday, all of the teachers were with us during the teaching and learning day. So our Induction Academy teachers were with their cohort for PD.
They were all with you. There was no classes?
There was no classes.
Thank you.
And those are built in. Then they meet with if they're a new teacher, if they're in step 1, they meet with their instructional coach on a weekly basis during their prep time, which is normally between that 10:30 to 1 o'clock time frame is when the majority of them have them there. And then the instructional specialists are also there to do observations or to, be with them. They can even partner teach with them in the classroom, that type of thing if we're implementing a specific strategy. So then they would do that then.
So the 5-year program, basically, you just kind of squeeze it in throughout the year.
Well, they take professional developments on certain days. So the PDs are scheduled out. Once the PDs are all scheduled out for them, then they take what they learned in that first, like let's say they did CT Essentials. They're then gonna complete their targeted outcome, which is a resource page of like, who do you go to for, to order supplies? And so we have them fill out like, this is, this person on your campus that you go to. So we kind of give them that framework of who do they go to. That completes that targeted outcome.
So that's done.
Then that one's done. Then we work with them on, teaching everyday basis until they have their next professional development, and then they will complete their targeted outcome for that. So they're strategically spread out through the year for that step. So each step, the PDs are scheduled for them on time that they're not teaching.
Okay, thank you.
So they have the skills just in time.
Yeah.
And then I guess my other question would be, have you tracked any of retention? Because it's overwhelming to come from, let's say CNI. You come from doing precision machining to teaching. It's never what you think it's gonna be. So have you tracked retention and how, first year we lose X%, next year, and I assume it slowly drops off because as they get more, I guess, experience,
Right.
they're more able to handle it.
I think tracking is something that we can do, like moving forward. But when the Induction Academy was put into place, all of our instructors go through the Induction Academy. So our experienced teachers, the majority of them had completed the professional development, so they just went back and completed their badges. Whereas like our new teachers, they're all going through the steps and through the process at time. So we ultimately, everybody's gone through the Induction Academy. And I wouldn't say that, I mean, and Jack does their exit interviews, I wouldn't say anybody said that like this has hindered them. But I don't know if really any of them have said this was super beneficial either. It's just not something that we've
Well,
tracked.
I was just curious, like, are we doing better because we've invested in them versus like Deer Valley? You know, what is their turnover rate compared to our turnover rate? That's kind of, because I imagine we're investing in them, it's gotta be better, but it's still, we're coming from a industry, so I'm just curious, you know, are we saving teachers, and is there a way to track that and prove that?
Chairman Strachan, I don't have hard data on that, but I am connected to that specific district, and I want to say they were about double us, from what I've heard from people inside that district. I don't know if it's related.
First to answer yours, these programs are also sort of the same things that we're teaching to other people. So Deer Valley CT teachers are coming to West-MEC, and we're helping them stay in. And then I appreciate the number question, but teaching is an art, and it's less about a number and more about the person. Like
Right,
you
how
don't
do
you
get
don't
them
you
to
don't
stay is
you
like-
don't know. Like everyone in here, from Mr. Wakefield on down, Dr. Herb, as a rookie teacher, right? His first day, your first day in school was nerve-wracking, and you didn't know. You didn't know, and you student taught, but there was an umbrella or a safety net, and you get in the classroom, and you're like, well, maybe I can hack this, and you fumble your way through the first year and the second year and the seventh year, and at some point you've been there doing it a while, and you're like, oh, I guess I know what I'm doing. But it's a person by person thing. Like this is an art. This is like hitting a fastball. Use a sports analogy. Like I know all the mechanics, but like, am I actually going to be able to do this? And so as a teacher, so like we could do numbers, right? We could study numbers, but in the end, it's each individual. And did this program help them stay or not help them stay?
Well, I imagine it helps them stay. It's just,
It has to, because
it's just
because
it
without
takes-
this, you would drown.
One of the things
especially coming-
one of the things that's missing in some partner districts, not ours specifically, but kind of across the nation, we provide a tremendous level of support. And what typically falls aside is they learn something and then they're not as successful with it. If that support person's not there, they just fall back into the same place they were before. But with the support we give them, it allows them to feel okay about the fact that maybe it didn't go as well as what they wanted it to.
Plus, they can always reach out for that support. I mean, it's not something.
I wanted to ask it, kind of go in a different direction.
Okay.
So your 5-year plan, right, in my mind is always like, all right, which things did I decide weren't important in the first year? But like, the whole list is important, right? Like all of it's important. And you kind of, you know, it's like you got to eat the elephant all at once, but you can't eat the elephant all at once. So which end do you start on? The decision-making in that. My question then, though, is like, when we have someone in their second year, and they have to go through teacher evaluation. Their program goes through TQI. Their CTSO is being evaluated. Is there a different rubric for a second-year teacher who's only a part of the way through the program, or they still have to toe the line because they've not been trained on everything? So how do we do that from an administrator, teacher, eval standpoint?
I can answer the question, but, or, Eric can answer it too.
Do the question.
I mean, I can answer it, but.
That's a challenging one. It is, and you know, when we were initially talking about the Teacher Induction Academy, there was brainstorming. There were so many people in the room talking about exactly that. How do you eat this elephant? Because you know, at the end of the day, we want the same opportunities for our students on day one that we want on the last day of our existence, right? We want to give it all to them up front, but it's not conceivable to do that. So we hashed that out, we put something into practice, then we iterated it depending on what we were seeing, you know, the skill sets we needed when we needed, what seemed to be priority. But when it comes to the evaluative process, we follow the evaluative process. Do I think in practice, do we have a little leniency or understanding for where a person is in their cycle? Absolutely, because a conversation with a first-year teacher about questioning looks a little different than a conversation with an extremely veteran teacher on that same topic. So I think that, you know, we differentiate for our teachers in our understanding of their understanding of the rubric. But we have to hold them honest to the rubric because they are a beginning person and they do have room for growth. And that can be a challenge to explain sometimes to somebody who's had a career in industry where they were highly successful and like they're already nervous restarting something. But so to answer that question, it's an art. We balance that to make sure that we make them feel efficacy, but we grow them at the same time.
Lastly, do we allow teachers to, it's not the right word, but skip around in this? So someone who comes to us and they have, like, they've got the year one stuff down because they had an experience somewhere or something. Do they get to then do the classes that they really need as opposed to the ones that they already have? Like, do we customize this for our teachers? I know that there's a lot of conversations with the coaches and all that kind of stuff. So, but do they still just walk through this program?
It really depends on the instructor. When they originally come to West-MEC, we do start them in step one, but if we see that, you know, they have a solid foundation, you know, they've got everything kind of going through. The nice thing is a lot of times they want to stay in there and be mentors to the other first year teachers, and so they kind of develop that cohort together they want to stick together because they
teachers are sick like that.
Yeah, because they kind of got to know everybody and do that. But then also we do allow them, if we do have a teacher, you know, who needs like a CTSO class or a work-based learning class or an advisory council class, and that comes further along in the steps, we will modify and adjust, but we do try to keep them on the same, you know, path just because it is a plan.
Right.
And we offer PDs at certain times, and you know that's developed all out to make sure they get all the professional development. So it really just depends on the situation. But of course, just.
And last question that I can think of at the moment: any of this for college credit?
They are not like college credit per se, but they can get their ADE credits if they need them.
Okay.
Is that kind of what you're?
No.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they can get their AD credits for those 15 Premier Series courses. They're the same Premier Series courses that they would do.
Sorry, their provisional certificate and the 19 hours that they have to get for these count towards that. Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. All right. Dr. Spurgeon.
Thank you, Chairman Straka. Just wanted to, this is kind of out of sequence for me. Typically, this update doesn't come until about mid-year, but I thought it was a good time for us to bring an update to the governing board around my superintendent goals. There's been some good work that's happened already, and I wanted to make sure that we make this public and get this information to the governing board as we move along in the progress of the 5 initial goals for my superintendent. Chris Cook.
Thank you, Chairman Straka, members of the governing board, Superintendent Spurgeon, Dr. Spurgeon. So I'm up first, and we'll be brief. It's going to be a series of us kind of just giving a quick little glimpse highlight. We were tasked in the communications with the great job of highlighting some of our industry spotlight. So some of our folks here that you see that are listed on here are people that actually have hired West-MEC students. So physical therapy folks, we just did one, and then you see down below also, these are some people this week that we've already filmed or gonna film. October 11th, obviously it was Tuesday, we filmed them, and then this Friday, actually, we're filming the Pacific Dental Services. So we're really excited to be able to highlight these students and be in a partnership with these spotlights here. So future potential, You see down there are CVS Health, All Things Metal, and Rummel Construction are some of the other companies. We're trying to do kind of a vast array of different companies to highlight of students that have been hired. So not just all aesthetics or all aviation and those kind of things. This will continue to grow, obviously, and help spur maybe some other companies to see this, to then want to be part of these highlight videos as well. Yes, sir.
How did we build this list? Is it, these are the companies that are already partnered? Are these
Correct.
programs of opportunity? Are these, what?
These are ones working with career services that we've identified that they've either hired one student or multiple students. And then also we were able to, the challenge of like setting up a time to be able to get through PR folks, all those kind of things, to be able to film on site, on location, and those kind of things. So it's a work in progress, and some of these future potential might actually have to switch based off of some of the PR requirements for being able to film on site location.
So it's quite a bit of work to get to this point.
It's always work to shoot videos, first of all, but then it's always work to shoot on a location.
Location.
For sure. Yes, it's easier obviously just to come here and, because we can say this, but yes.
And again, let me make this comment, as we look at the three areas around relationships that CJ talked about, when you look at that strategic partnership, this could be one of those what we may call perks of being a strategic partner is being highlighted in this way. And there's things that we're looking at. We're going to build that list of saying, as a strategic partner, these are the things that we would expect from you. These are things you would expect from us. And then these are the things you may get in addition to for being a strategic partner for us. And so this is kind of a model for us to set up.
Yeah, I think it is a great model to kind of dangle the carrot a little bit of, yes.
Expanding,
Correct. Next, we have more of our organic kind of look where we're kind of doing these little spotlights that aren't necessarily, maybe they hired a student or maybe they have. If you look on some of the ones that we completed on the left-hand side, like Spinner Physical Therapy, Diamondback Athletic Trainers, this is one where Dr. Spurgeon went out and kind of did a West-MEC moment. We knew that this group was coming, Diamondback specifically, to the physical therapy program at Northwest Campus. And so we thought it'd be a good time to kind of highlight them and thank them for going out and talking to students. So as you can see, as we look on the right-hand side of future potential highlights, these are some that we're gonna kind of look at organically and highlight them based off of like information that we're getting from the campuses, if there's tours or those kind of things, or like the Nestle tour, we're actually gonna post that and say, thanks Nestle for coming out to see West-MEC. So those kind of things are more organic, as opposed to the other ones that actually take time where you have to film and do all those kind of things. So this one kind of, for a creative standpoint, is fun for us, because we get to kind of pick and choose kind of how we want to kind of showcase those as well. And same thing, making sure that we're kind of doing a broad reach of industries, that we're not just highlighting one or two. And we have a little bit more leeway with this one because, like I said, we don't have to actually go to a place.
And typically before the actual production comes out, you usually see me in a West-MEC moment doing something in that same area right before you see the production come out.
Yeah,
So
so
it's
for
just kind of a
example,
flow.
the physical therapy one, for example, he did kind of a little before, so stay tuned for the video. For the next one with, I believe, let me go back, Adelante Health, we did one at the Northwest Campus with the medical teacher as well, and kind of say, stay tuned. So we filmed those earlier, and then right before we get ready to post the video, we kind of showcase those as a teaser, so to speak as well.
Coming up pretty soon, I'm pretty sure, something like that.
Yes. We're getting for Aesthetics Day. Aesthetics Day is coming up, so yes, we're looking forward to that.
So the reason I asked about the programs of opportunity is I think one of the reasons why we have programs of opportunity is students. Let me acknowledge that in the PR world, right, where we have a whole bunch of different audiences. We have recruiting students to be in our programs. We have giving parents confidence that their kids are going to have a good time in the program, and then we're also reaching out to our greater community for political support and voter recognition, and finance funding and all that. From the student perspective, those programs of opportunity. I know you have a ton of videos out there, the 360s on the labs and all of those kinds of things, but I still think the struggle is always a kid can't visualize themselves in it, right? Like, they're like, well, yeah, that lab looks cool, but like, I don't see myself doing it later on in life. And it would be really cool if we had some of these like actual kids, students, graduates.
I see what you're saying. So a day in the life of a former West-MEC student
Yeah.
showcasing, yes.
Yeah.
And definitely, that's something that we can always get better at having different ideas. The only issue I see challenges, like, I know sometimes you like to hear challenges, is if it's specific program like medical and those kind of things from a, what is it, the fancy word, the HIPAA or
Yeah.
HIPAA, like that's the one we had an issue with Adelante. We've had to film like a little separate area and there could be no people around except for the former student. But I think in some of the other industries.
Well, so like I think like HVAC is one, like that's one we don't have a waiting list on generally, right? Is that right? I'm looking at Maryland, yeah. Right, but that's one we could go. You talked about the connection between the Southwest power plant operator and that's running systems and Nestle is a system and like it's this, right? Like I had a conversation with people, all of our local municipalities are dying, just desperate about water treatment plant operators, right? Like they all just they're raising pay for water treatment operators in all of our cities, and that particular program, right, is that. I mean, that's that training, and so for our programs of opportunity to get potential students and parents like, hey, this is actually a pretty good living, right? Like to be a city employee is, not a bad deal, or work for the county water board, right? And so those kinds of things that people just don't think about. And that might be, not that you're gonna do it tomorrow, I get it, but I just wanted to plant the
Well, I
seed.
appreciate, yes.
Yeah,
Some lead time.
I was gonna say, I don't see students talking about, I would love to work at a water treatment plant because
But that's
it's just
the
not
thing.
very-
But man, they're making $70,000 to $90,000 a year if they're working for the Maricopa County Water Board. They're in Maricopa benefits, right? Which are better than even West-MEC's, right? Like,
I think creatively to do something like this, you have to focus more on the lifestyle, Chairman Straka, of maybe you show them getting in their car from their house and talking about, I'm leaving my house, I'm getting my brand new car, some of those kind of things for the students to start seeing, okay, the potential and the possibilities. Then they go into the work. We have to showcase something cool. We're not showcasing something, weird and having them really highlight it. But yes, there's always that creative challenge, but I think there's ways when you focus on the lifestyle as opposed to some of the mundane tasks of a particular field.
But there's also some virtual reality pieces that are now becoming available for students to be able to project themselves. Like, for example, we have in our welding program, there's a virtual reality welding program where the students can see themselves practicing the actual welds themselves. ABEC has a program that we talked about a couple days ago that she was interested in maybe doing something in some of our districts. But let me get back to Nestle. Two things about Nestle is, they're going to have a water treatment facility, but they're going to be a contributor to the water and not just a consumer. So they're going to have a whole facility, treatment facility there on site. And so they were very interested in our water treatment facility program at Southwest Campus. And secondly, they're the first company where they said that they would be looking to maybe hire on work study 16, 17, and 18-year-olds.
Wow.
That's cool.
That's the first time ever. Which
And you
you
only
earlier experience doing something that they're able to do in the manufacturing environment stuff, even at the 16.
You only need one to say yes and start the success.
Yes. Well, you had something, I'm
I was
sorry.
gonna make a comment, the description you gave is similar to a video that I saw at the ACT conference for the electrical CTE. They showed a student going to school, basically like you said, like waking up in the morning, driving to school, doing the class, doing the homework, and then driving afterward to work and doing some other work. And all along they're narrating and basically talking about their experience, what they learned, what they like about it, and all that. So is that something similar with the video you completed here, the industry spotlight for Spooner Physical Therapy? Did you do something similar to that, or?
I guess, help me understand the question again of
Oh,
similar to like the one we currently did with
Yeah.
the Spotlight?
Yeah.
Those would be two totally different things. Kind of, I think what
Mr. Kaltenbach is alluding to more of a day in the life.
No, okay.
These ones are more, it's an actual industry spotlight of a person that works in physical therapy at
Oh,
Spooner.
okay.
They've hired the West-MEC student, they're talking about how great the student is. We would hire more West-MEC students, they come in prepared, trained. We want more folks like this. West-MEC is the best place, that's where we look for to hire students.
Gotcha,
So
okay.
that's that one separate, and then the other piece is what he's talking about is maybe do some, these other kind of day in the life.
Oh, okay,
For
yeah,
lack of a better
I thought
term.
that's what this one was.
Yeah.
And if I could just, because the agenda does say superintendent goals, we have really drifted off topic. So if I could bring us back to superintendent goals, Mr. Cook.
Great idea.
It's great conversation, but to keep us honest in the agenda.
Thanks. And also just as a promotional for us, thank you for folks like Barbara Worley for sharing. So we see that. We notice. We see the shares and those kind of things too. So we do appreciate that. So thank you very much. You too, Mr. K. Thank you very much, Mr. Kaltenbach, for that as well.
Yeah.
Simple arrow. A like is good, but an arrow really makes a difference. So we do appreciate it.
And then they reshare.
Yes.
See? Yes. Okay. So next up is Mr. Welsh. He'll be talking about credentialing. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Chairperson Straka, governing board members, Superintendent Dr. Spurgeon. I really appreciate the leadership of our board and superintendent in creating this goal. I believe industry recognized credentials is a real measurement of what we are about. At the end of the day, we are about student success and preparing students for that next step towards their realizing the American dream, and that all begins with an industry recognized credential. So we continue steadfastly working hard towards making sure that every student leaves with an industry recognized credential. You'll recall that all of our students leave with an industry credential. We are really trying to emphasize and level up to the next level of making sure that the industry credential our students leave with is one that is preferred or required by industry. So you would see it on a job advertisement, or you'd see it being used in a rubric during a hiring fair by one of these companies that both CJ and Dr. Spurgeon have talked about. So that's our focus, is at least 83% of students would leave with one of those highly recognized industry credentials. That really started at the beginning of this year. You'll recall that we talked to the board a little bit about industry credentials. We kind of showed you a list. You recall we had some good conversations with Dr. Pringarelli and Chairperson Straka about what do we do to really look at the data and dig into where we can realize the greatest effects. So since we've last met, the folks behind me and the folks throughout the district have really looked at this data, not only our own trend analysis data on the fact that we continue to emphasize and get better and better at these industry recognized credentials, but looked at the state as a whole. So in the state of Arizona, Arizona Department of Education has reported that 19% of students have left with an industry recognized credential. Compare that to West-MEC's trend analysis, where we're at 78% have left, not only with an industry recognized credential, but one truly of high value. In addition to looking at state data, we've looked at national certification pass rates, because we know that not all credentialing exams are the same, right? Some are much more rigorous than others. So in some of the areas where we talk about here in a few minutes where we have opportunities to continue growing, it really matches some of these difficult national scoring rates. So that first one you see there, IT and cybersecurity, we're going to talk about cybersecurity as one of the areas where we still have some opportunities to work and get better. But we recognize that the national pass rate for cybersecurity is 30%. So, you know, us trying to get to 83% is, even for West-MEC, which is a champion out there, that's a tall order. So we'll continue to make progress, but we've really looked to research what are the national pass rates, and are we at least at the national pass rate or better in those areas where we are struggling. And then finally, Dr. Spurgeon has really challenged West-MEC to not only be a leader in the state of Arizona, but to be a leader nationally and to benchmark ourselves towards national career and technical education districts. In doing that, we researched with the Association for Career and Technical Education and the National Council of Career and Technical Educational Leaders, and really it surfaced that Tulsa Tech in Oklahoma Hey, that's where it's happening right now. That's a real leader, and so we've benchmarked ourselves against them. They're currently at 86%, and we've set this goal, as you know, at 83%. But we've really done this dive deep into the data on credentials to recognize, hey, where is it that we're going to spend our effort? So where we're going to just continue leaning into good practices are these credentials where we already have more than 80%. And you can see that's the vast majority of credential programs here at West-MEC. We're well over national averages, continuing to do really strong things. Our teachers are going to continue in that good work, of course.
Sorry, energy was 104%?
Yeah, this the reason that would be is because a student would have earned a high recognized credential, but they left at some point. As well as we have that 10-day thing that happens. So in the first 10 days of school, a student can still add class. So depending on whether this was taken at the 10th day or the 100th day, it can be one student off. That's where that's coming in at, is there's one student that either, for whatever reason, had completed the credential but the last day left for whatever reason, or was more than likely was in that 10-day period at the beginning of school would be my guess, but we could look at that specifically for you. So really looking at those programs where we have our greatest opportunity, right? We're moving from 78% last year to 83%. So where are we going to see that biggest effect? And that is, of course, by looking at these programs, which were less than 80%. So aesthetics and hairstyling specifically, we've really looked at the, that was somewhat because of COVID, the State Board of Cosmetology, and we talked a little bit about this last week with licensing, or last month. But the State Board of Cosmetology was not scheduling people, and they were way behind. Since then, they have moved to a test format, a multiple choice test format for aesthetics. And for hairstyling, it's part test, part demonstration. Due to the good work of our testing center here at West-MEC, we've now been approved to do the test ourselves, so we don't have to wait any longer for students to go down and test at the state board, which is very backlogged. We can start testing them ourselves as early as, I hope by the holidays, by Christmas. That's a nice stocking stuffer, someone to get their certification. We can start testing ourselves. So
Is the state going to send your students to test?
Yeah,
They're so backlogged, are they gonna?
Yeah, thank you, Member Wiley. That's a good question, and you're absolutely right. Our testing center, we can reserve some space for West-MEC students, but it will be open to the entire valley.
Really?
So students from other folk, from Bedell, Sassoon, or whatnot, could come and test with us as well. Aviation, aviation was one of those where we're looking at the national pass rate was 60%. Troy has done great leadership with the aviation staff and really brainstorming opportunities here. It used to be the case that for the FAA credential, there are really three tests. There's a general, airframe, power plant, and once you pass those written tests, then you can do your oral and practical. It used to be the case that you could not take your general until you passed airframe and power plant. The FAA has just changed that to where you can take general after you finish that instruction now. So with that change, under Troy's leadership and our aviation teachers, they're going to start allowing students following the instruction, they will be able to sit for that licensure, which really should jumpstart our ability to start moving students into licensure in aviation. So we will try that out this year. This is the first year we've been able to do it, so we'll try that out. That's this year. We're excited to be able to do that.
That's before they actually leave, correct?
Correct. Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. So they finished general at just before the winter recess of their first year, so they'll be able to test in the spring of their first year. Then they would finish aviation the next October-ish, which means they'd be able to test for their airframe, but it could start to build that momentum hey, I passed general, I can do this. Now I can go sit for airframe, I did that. So it should start to build on that momentum is the hope.
The other thing that would be very helpful, like especially with aviation, because I recall the tests are expensive. If we could also include how the foundation pays for some of those, because I think that's the other part of our success is we have the foundation helping students that can't afford the test, because if I recall, it's like a $400 or $600 test, and you're talking 3, you're now $1,200 to $2,000.
And currently we, under this current year in our current students, we receive, the governor has an credential incentive grant that pays for these tests. So our students, fortunately don't have the burden of having to come up with that money immediately out of pocket. In addition to that, we do have the alliance that Chairperson Streck is referring to that contributes to it too. But we can provide you the cost of all these
Not so much the cost, but when the foundation helps. I was thinking, I didn't know the governor was handing out the funding, but.
Currently, there's a $5 million that goes to CTE that helps to pay and offset the hurdles of credentialing in these high-need areas such as aviation. And then
Ms. Wiley had a question.
Sure. When a student gets hired or they go out to get hired, say in welding or veterinary sciences, do they ask for a certificate?
Yeah, I appreciate that you asked by program, right? Because it is different by program.
Right.
So welding as an example, yes, AWS is very, very recognized. Now that being said, not all welding jobs are the same, right? Like a small shop, as CJ was saying, right? We work with all size companies. So a small shop might not have the stringent requirement
But
that
it would be
a
to the
large
student's
industry does.
benefit in order to show it, even if he doesn't require it.
Absolutely be the student's benefit to show that, yes. It gives our students that competitive advantage out there in the marketplace.
Is it the same with the veterinary sciences?
Yes. Yes. We have some fields that it absolutely requires it.
They do require it?
Yeah, some
Okay.
fields absolutely require it, and others it gives that competitive advantage. It's preferred, but not necessarily required. IT security, that's one that's a very ever-changing field in the IT world, especially in cybersecurity. Those teachers are working with the advisory council to really make sure, hey, have we identified the correct assessments and what are study materials we can do, both with IT security and pharmacy. Our teachers are looking at, boot camps. Hey, what kind of boot camp can we do before the test to really prepare students for it? So it's a number of strategies that we're working on to really elevate those areas where we're less than 80%. In addition, really have highlighted this, in addition to Dr. Spurgeon's goal, this is a goal across the district, right? All of our teachers, as part of their classroom site funds or their 301 performance pay, this is part of that performance pay. Teachers all throughout our district set these goals. They work regularly with their advisory councils on strategies to prepare students to really realize success. I think it's the most important goal that we're working on. I also am it's the one I'm the most confident in us succeeding, just because of our history with this and the industry partnerships that we have to help students.
As Stephen said, what you'll notice is now we have full alignment from top to bottom and bottom to top through superintendent goals, strategic planning goals, tactical goals, down to the teacher classroom goals. So we're all pulling on the same rope, moving in the same direction.
Are there study aids for some of these exams that students can obtain, or do we provide them?
Yeah, there are absolutely study aids for most of these exams. We do provide those to students. Our teachers do an excellent job. As a matter of fact, many of them, like if you walk the halls of our campus, you're gonna see students sometimes doing this. Oftentimes they're not texting their friend, they are using a study aid, because many of them have apps where they can run through practice questions or scenarios and those types of things. But it is very common throughout all of our programs.
Oh, okay, great.
Thank you. Yes, and then Mr. Guy is eager to get up here because he's as excited about this goal as I was about credentialing.
This is way off down the road. a data point. It occurred to me, on my campus today, all of our juniors took the PSAT. Well, not all of our juniors, the juniors wanted to. But like, we're drilling kids to get them to pass these certification tests their junior and senior year. And at the same time on their home campus, they're taking ACTs and SATs and state tests and all that kind of stuff. And man, it would be cool if we could get some data to show that all of the efforts our teachers are putting into test prep actually helps them then take those other tests.
That would be beautiful.
Yeah, and it's anecdotal, but I think we know from John Mulcahy's research, which he presented at the NCLA conference, that I was able to just see some updated research. But you know what his research will tell you is that CTE completers not only are more likely to graduate high school, but they score better on the ACT and the PCAT. So both in math and in reading. But I'll share that research with you, Mr. Kaltenbach. I know you'd enjoy seeing it. Thank you.
Mr. Guy, take it away.
Thank you, Chairman Straka, members of the board, Dr. Spurgeon. Thank you for the opportunity to update a little bit on campus utilization. So we've been, over the last couple months, we've been working individually with our campuses, with our campus administrators, as well as with Dr. Spurgeon and others, members of leadership, to meet and really dive deep into how we're using all of our campuses, looking at program times, how we're spacing things out throughout the day, and what are some current opportunities that we could maximize things right now and make some of those changes, and then what are those ideas that are maybe a little bit further out but that we can start working towards. So just a snapshot of where we are at currently with that, just by each campus here. So I'll go through quickly kind of each campus. Again, where we're at, just a snapshot currently of how we're utilizing our campus. Central Campus, we have 6 high school programs on Central Campus, 3 adult programs, and roughly with high school and adults, about 353 students. The campus is in operation from 5:30 a.m. It's actually to 10:30 p.m. I made a typo there. Our aviation program runs all the way till 10:30 in the evening on Central Campus. So as you can see, we're using the campus all throughout a huge span of the day, of course with some more busy times throughout the day than others. One thing at Central Campus, we're really looking at, Troy and leadership there at Central Campus, we're really looking at how they could potentially expand their times for coding, drones, and precision machining. So those programs, they're looking at opportunities to potentially add sessions in the morning where they could spread those times out a little bit, which would then allow for us to maybe expand some adult programming in the afternoons on campus, as you see in some of those future considerations, and then even potentially some one-year programs when we open up some of that real estate, if you will, in the afternoon. So that's one way at Central Campus. Central's our smallest campus, and so space-wise, it's certainly our most limited space-wise currently on Central Campus, but we're really using that campus a lot, serving a lot of our high school and adults, as you can see, from early in the morning till late in the evening on Central Campus. Northeast Campus, we have 10 high school programs, 1 adult program currently, and about 541 students. They're again operating from 7 a.m. to 9:45 in the evening. One current update that we're looking to implement right away is to add an additional cohort of HVAC, so our adult HVAC program. We're going to be starting an additional cohort, which will add another 20 additional students to that campus and expand the offerings for HVAC for our adult side at the Northeast Campus. So that's something we're going to implement this spring. And then future considerations, certainly as Dr. Spurgeon talked about earlier, is in conversations with TSMC, a lot of our electric vehicle manufacturers. Certainly we want to continue to explore how we could add some automated industrial technologies, some automation robotics type programming, as well as electric vehicles at our Northeast Campus with the proximity there to that campus. Something we're definitely exploring. And then again, adding additional adult programs in the afternoon where we have some real estate, and then articulated programs with member districts. In addition to our campus meetings,
failed to mention at the beginning, we've also been meeting with our member district superintendents. Dr. Spurgeon talked about Dysart as an example. We've been meeting with several others and really looking at, their needs. What are their needs and what times and programs best can support them so that we're making sure that we're building those schedules in collaboration with those member districts, which is so critical. And so being able to articulate some of our programs with those member districts a little bit better so that if we have a student, for example, that takes a sports medicine program on their home campus, how could we better articulate how that could flow right into our physical therapy tech program as a senior and make that a little bit more seamless and clear for those students so that could even maybe shorten up some of the content that we need to cover if they're already coming in with a bank of knowledge that we know they're coming in with. Just might present us some more opportunities to do some shorter programs or some programs during that middle of the day real estate that we have open. So again, just a future opportunities that we're continuing to explore and generate ideas. Northwest Campus, one of our bigger campuses, 12 high school programs, 674 students. Currently, Northwest Campus is working hard along with our adult ed team to seek approval to offer adult programming on Northwest Campus this fall. And so that's going to really expand. As you can see, lots of high school students already from throughout the day from 7 a.m. to 6:30 in the evening. Attending programs at Northwest, but that will really allow us to expand the adult program offerings for that community. In addition, we're going to expand morning program offerings next year. So in the fall of 23, IT security, dental assisting, and medical assisting will have additional offerings in the morning. So that will present more opportunity, more choice for students out there to work those into their schedules. As well as based on need, we're going to add a morning aesthetics at Northwest. So we add an additional section of that program. It was one of our largest wait list programs this last fall. So we'll be able to add a morning session of that, providing more opportunity. For
high schools allowing the kids to go in the mornings?
They are, yeah. We've, yes. It doesn't work for all students. So as we talk about some of these morning offerings, we still have offerings throughout the day and the afternoon. So really we have that choice throughout the day that may work for those students in the morning. Some students it doesn't, and so we still have those opportunities in the afternoon. But more and more, the conversations with our member districts have been very supportive of these morning options and these morning opportunities. Yeah.
The other thing to keep in mind is that we've missed a whole group of students that participate in sports and extracurricular activities when the programs are only offered in the afternoon. So being more flexible and nimble enough to move some of our programs as more options in the morning will open it up to a new group of kids.
I'm just surprised high school. I mean, most of my kids that have graduated, at least they're seniors, they go in the morning at 11 o'clock.
Some kids now don't want to go in the morning, they want to sleep in, and they go in at 11.
They've been very collaborative conversations with our member districts, and some of it's due to just their campuses are crowded, and having students off campus in the morning eases some of that, helps their schedules in the afternoon. So it's really a collaborative effort with the member districts to build those. We're also adding a one-year medical assisting program at Northwest next year as well. So really just a lot of new opportunities on the high school side, and then the sky's really the limit on our adult program offerings once we're approved for that at Northwest next year. And then Southwest, currently 13 high school programs, 3 adult programs, over 800 students on campus, operating all day and night. Some additions for next year right away. We're adding a medical laboratory science program next year. Will be a new program to us at West-MEC at the Southwest campus. So that's going to be a new offering. We expect will be very popular. Another medical avenue for students to pursue. So that's a great opportunity to maximize some space we're currently not using on Southwest campus. Similar to Northwest, we're expanding some morning offerings in IT, dental, and medical. Same concept to create more choice, more opportunities throughout the day for students. We're also currently exploring and finalizing plans to kind of update our energy. What we currently have is our energy and engineering technology program and environmental sustainability. We're really looking at kind of retooling those programs into 3 one-year programs that will put us in better position to prepare students for the advanced manufacturing, more of the automation, robotics type skills. But also still serve the need in the utility industry and some of those other areas. And so we're looking to get that approved through the Department of Education and implement that in the fall, which will allow us to bring back a kind of a renewed environmental sustainability water treatment program that might even better serve the needs of industry. So lots of good things happening for next year at Southwest Campus.
Hey, Jared, give the one
Yes.
example that Dr. Parson made one move last year with the changing of the classes and the increased enrollment. Talk about that.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Spurgeon. So there was, those morning options, so for example, like the model that we're gonna move to, like in dental assisting, we did this last year in our vet program at Southwest Campus. So we have 2 teachers in that program, and so traditionally it was only offered in that 1 to 3:30 and the 4 to 6:30. We added with those same 2 teachers a section in the morning so that there's a 7 a.m., a 4 p.m., and then still the 1 to 3:30 in the middle. And we saw our biggest, that was a program at Southwest that since we opened vet, we would fill it up or get, like 90% full, but it was never had a waiting list. It was always kind of that one that was filled up like the day before school started. But this last year with that change, there was a wait list for the first time of students getting in, just because that additional choice in that morning offering. So that model is what we're really looking to implement in dental and these other programs that we're confident will create some more apps, fill up those programs with students in those seats where and generate, not that we want to generate a wait list, but we want to be able to completely fill up those programs with students that are the right fit. So so we're really looking at what's working, what are those things that are really working, that are generating results for us, and then how can we replicate that. Some of the challenges that as we work through campus utilization, just some things to be aware of that we continue to work through. Transportation, of course, is a challenge regardless of the time of day that we do programs. It's a challenge. We've been working again with our member districts. More and more of our member districts are figuring out ways to help with transportation. They're seeing the value. The morning offering sometimes gives them even more opportunity to transport students to campuses, and we've seen that with Dysart District, with Buckeye District, others that are exploring trying to start that in the near future, along with some of our smaller districts like Gila Bend. Scheduling with member districts, we talked about that over and over. It's a collaboration, right, with those member district schedules. There is some real estate in the middle of the day, even though we're offering a few programs, that's probably our most difficult time from like 11 a.m. to 1, just because that's right smack in the school scheduled day. We're still exploring what we can do with our member districts, but obviously we've got to collaborate with those 48 different schedules out there. And then staffing is a challenge. There are programs currently that we could maximize even more sections and offerings if we could find quality, teachers, qualified teachers to fill those programs. Precision machining as an example, or others where, coding at Central Campus, we have students, we have capacity, but finding additional instructors limits us in some of the opportunities we can offer. So that's something, the recruitment efforts, as we've talked about a lot, something we'll continue to look at, and how can we better attract those teachers, which will allow us to create more opportunity for students.
So one of the models that we're looking at right now is we were having difficulty finding an HVAC teacher for the Northeast Campus. We happened to find one, but in between the time we were looking for a new teacher, I worked through McCarthy, who got us in touch with Parker and Sons, and I pitched the idea of saying, listen, why don't we partner together? Why don't you provide me a technician? You pay for him or her, and we'll let you use our lab space. You can train your own individuals you bring in and our adults, and at the end of the program, guess what you have? Access to all the individuals you're actually training. And so we're in round 2 of talks with Parker and Sons as a potential model moving forward, because to me that's kind of a duh. that if you're able to put that partnership together, number one, you get to evaluate the individuals you're working with. Number two, when they're certified, they have a relationship developed with not only the company, with each other, and they can come right into that company. So we're hoping to create that kind of a partnership as you look at strategic partnerships of how we can work collaboratively together and it be a benefit to the students and to the companies.
And a lot of the trade companies now in their radio advertising are saying, hey, we're a great place to work. If you're, looking for a new company to work HVAC, come work for, and so they're all hurting. So I would think that it's
the cost of our program is about a third of what it would cost them to go places, the adults.
I'm gonna turn it over to our cleanup here, Dr. Erb.
He's got 2 bats, he's swinging 2 tonight.
All right.
Okay, Chairman Straka, board members, Dr. Spurgeon, the next 2 items, the first one is to cover is on our compensation and benefits information for all our employee groups. We are working with Heinfield and Meach. They did do a study 3 years ago. It was recommended by the governing board instead of me as an individual in HR getting comparisons and presenting to the board that we would reach to an independent group that would reach out to industry and cities and school districts to do a study on where we are currently with compensation for salary and benefits. So we have engaged Heinfield and Meach. Karen Smith is the one that's overseeing the study. You can see on this slide that we are doing every position currently that we have at West-MEC. We've sent them all of our job descriptions. We're in the process of updating our job descriptions, but we are not leaving any department or any individual or any instructor, any support staff, any administrator out of the survey. We asked them for the entry level, medium, highest, and their actual salaries that they're paying the individuals. We requested wage increases for the past 2 years. We could go back further, but we engaged them for just 2 years. We asked for the base salary, classroom site funds, performance pay, stipends. And today, I received from Heinfield and Meach these 2 documents. And on here from the conversation that Chairman Straka and Dr. Spurgeon and I had this afternoon, they have on here the total number of work days, the number of holidays, the number of sick days, the number of vacation days that we had discussion. So that's all included and will be collected from all of the individual district cities that we presently are going to engage in. The next one are the comparison entities. Where you have 3 CTEDs, Pima JTED did not change their name, but that we're looking at community colleges. We're gonna choose from here some of the East Valley school districts, what we've never done before. We're going to do the City of Surprise, Peoria and Glendale, which we did present information to you last year. And then we're gonna do comparisons with industries and those businesses that are on our economic modeling report that we receive from current industries and salaries that they're currently paying. The next one.
So just if I back up, I don't see any of our member districts on here.
Okay, Tollison's on there, Dycer's on there, Glendale Union, all 3 are on there. Peoria, Deer Valley, and Paradise Valley are not on there. I decided to go and to compare some of the East Valley school districts because we've never done Chandler, we've never done Mesa. It'd be interesting to see what they're compensating their salaries there. We did do EVIT last year, and in the presentation you could see that some of the positions were paying significantly higher than what we are currently paying, but we wanted to get a rundown of all of their positions.
And in addition, their list of data points that they're researching is more than what you've done in the past. You have done the Peorias and the Glendales yourself, Dr. Erb, like a lot of this stuff for those districts in the past. So we kind of have some data for that anyway.
I think this will be more complete, and it'll be more on an independent outside source that's looking at those salary and benefits that organizations are paying. On here, I just got it this afternoon, they're asking for the number of PD days that was mentioned to you, professional development days that they get in some of the member districts. Does the district have early release? We don't have early release like member districts do on a weekly basis, but we do have our professional development type of salary schedule. We have a beginning and a hiring range, beginning and an end. Now there's no end because the board approved that we would not have an end to our salaries. Educational level, we don't use educational level like school districts do, but they're asking for that information. Additional educational credits, we don't do that as a CTED. Most districts will do a step down and a step across, but they've also gone away from that. So this is pretty comprehensive, and I got it at 3:30 this afternoon, or I would have included some of this information in the slides. Next slide, we're also asking them for benefit information. This tells you a little bit. We want the medical, dental, vision insurances they pay for, included with PPO and HDHP, coverage paid by the employer and the employee, the deductibles, the maximum out of pocket, similar to information that we have provided you. On here, again, we just received today, there's sick day allocations, personal day allocation, vacation days. Wanted to find the insurance, the premium paid for individuals, families, PPO, employee, spouse, child, family. So we're going to get that from every one of the organizations that will provide that to us. So with that, any questions before I go into the audit?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Mr. Mcguire.
Dr. Erb, when will it be, March or April, that you bring this information back to us? Or will we get it prior to that and then act in March or April?
Okay, the last little bullet, and I skipped over it, we requested the compensation report to be done by January. So
Okay.
we will have plenty of time, and then we can bring salary and benefits. Our target date is to bring it the 1st of March.
If I understand correctly, and I'm sorry I was not here last month, we have a critical position open, business manager. Am I correct?
That is.
And I looked at the opening and the announcement, and I see it advertised at, I think it was 99 to 119. I just would like my fellow board members to know we may have to get a qualified real business manager. We may have to look at that. I know it's going to throw the others off until we look at it, but we need a qualified school district business manager, and it will be important that our salary be reflective of what's being paid in the industry. Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, so the next update is on our yearly audit. We're currently in process. We had our first visit on the 5th through the 7th for our preliminary visit with the business department. The auditors are from Heinfield and Meach. They're going to come back on November 7th through the 9th. It's not just an easy thing that we have to present documents to the auditors. This is a sampling example of the questions and the different areas that the auditors request information from West-MEC. And it's pretty comprehensive, and it covers a lot of information.
Dr.
Yes.
What is a governing board management procedure?
Okay, I'll tell you in a minute. And on this one, it didn't show up, so it must have changed. I believe there's 100, unless I skipped over it. No. In those sampling examples, there's 175 questions that the board, that the auditors respond to. Not all of them are for CTEDs. They're more for K-8 districts, but it's pretty extensive, and they either give you a yes or no, they're in compliance. So I gave you a few examples. Does our district governing board meetings, are they held in accordance with ARS 38431 and prepared and retained written minutes and recordings? The answer is yes, we do that. So we would get a yes on that. They would look and ask D to provide that information. Do we do it on an ongoing basis? Does the governing board establish written personnel and payroll procedures and policies that include contracts, salaries, and wages? Yes. Does the governing board receive monthly student activity funds and the reports, the vouchers? The answer is yes. So those are just some of the district ones. And then they asked all kinds of, does the district maintain capital assets following the USFR? So it's pretty thorough. We will hopefully have it done by the first quarter of 2023. And by statute, we need to present that to the governing board in a public meeting. So once they complete it and have the review, then we will bring it forward in a public meeting for you to ask questions and review.
One of the things that you may not know is oftentimes when they go to pull information, it's all random. So we can't just give them a pack of information and say, these are the ones we want to look at. They'll say, this is the area, and then they'll actually go and pull the information themselves, so it's completely at random.
And if anyone wants to see the 175 questions, I will be happy to send you a copy of the 175 questions that the auditors were asked. The business department's done a great job. Christina Pena and the whole department has worked the last 2 or 3 weeks organizing everything and emailing it to the auditors so they were prepared when they come in. I know I was interviewed, Chairman Stryka was interviewed by the auditors and asked questions, so they're pretty thorough in their work. So with that, I'll stand for any questions you might have.
I just would add a comment is, if you happen to be in the elevator with the auditor or you don't know who it is, don't be making comments about, hey, has anyone seen has anyone seen this expense report or something? Because I know of a company that somebody said something in an elevator with an auditor that required a public statement. So just try not to do that.
Last thing I'll say is I'm very proud of the individuals. We've done some really good work so far, really dug in and done some research, and so just want to say thank you to them so far.
It's a lot of work, and auditors require a lot of time, and it's appreciated by the board, never appreciated by the auditors. It's never enough.
Okay, with that, that completes our review of the 5 district goals.
So again, thanks to everyone tonight. More to come.
All right. Dr. Erb, the first reading of policies. I would be happy with a summary, and you don't have to actually read the policies.
Okay, and I will give you summaries like I did last time. I just decided today I better do it again. So there's 8 new ones. These are, again, first readings. These really don't have a major impact.
Who comes up with these 8 new ones?
They all came from the legislature, and they were all approved and signed by the governor. So with that, let's go to the first one.
So you're legislators.
I guess so.
Transportation services, even though we don't own a transportation operation and have yellow buses and white buses, there are a lot of districts that do transport students to and from programs. Our TOPS program at the Dicer district, they transport in white buses to our program. You can transport 11, no more than 15 students. We included it in here because we have CTSOs, and if we wanted to partner with a member district and lease one of their white buses, we don't have to have a driver with a CT or CDO to be able to drive it. A lot of the districts are doing it, but this gives us permission. So that's the transportation services on page 3 that's in your book, if you're looking at it, or online. Staff conduct is a new one. So I could go through and read this staff conduct, and I meant to let you know Susan Siegel was going to be here tonight. She had an emergency late this afternoon, called me and said she wouldn't be here. So if there is any questions, I can follow up with her and have a conversation. But this is the first reading of our staff conduct procedure and policy on page 4 that you have in your packet. And I've reviewed this first reading with 2 of the campuses, and I will be following up tomorrow and Friday with the other 2 campuses.
New language is underlined, correct?
It's all new language.
All of it, not just the underlined?
All of the underlined, it says all new language. It's on this slide, and it should be in the packet.
So the underlined is the whole document new language?
No, just
the underlined part.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's.
Again, first reading, if any of the board wants to make any recommendations, any modifications, you can talk to Dr. Spurgeon, myself, and then we'll see if we can incorporate any other additional changes in here in language, and we can bring them back at the next reading, because this is first reading tonight. Okay, next one is on page 8, staff health and safety. The only new piece in this policy is prohibits districts from requiring COVID vaccination or masking. So that's new language. It's in that staff health and safety. Next one, teaching about controversial issues, sensitive issues. It's page 11 and 12. They removed all of the items that are in the policy A through D. And I have a list of them, but you have them in there. But they removed the pieces of one race, ethnic group, or sex is inherently, morally, and intellectually superior to another race, ethnic group, or sex. An individual, by virtue of individual race, ethnicity, of sex, is inherently racist, sexist, oppressive, whether consciously or unconsciously. They removed all those from the policy.
When you say they, is that the legislature? Or
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, and they made those statements under teaching about controversy, they took those out and added positive statements to the policy. School ceremonies, they require that you can participate in the Pledge of Allegiance and a moment of silence each day. The moment of silence has to be a minimum of 1 minute, no more than 2 minutes. And then it permits our schools and our principals and employees to post constitutional documents as listed on page 13. I didn't list them all on the slide, but there's all kinds of constitutional documents that they can place in the classroom.
Moment of silence, are we supposed to be 1 minute, no more than 2 minutes at a board meeting as well?
This is for schools. It didn't say anything about the board.
Okay, just checking.
Okay. This is a requirement for students.
We do the
We do moment of silence, but am I supposed to wait a whole minute? But no more than 2.
It indicates boards. I didn't see
It
where it said
doesn't
board.
indicate the board. This is for students.
I think we should go a half hour.
Or till presentations are over.
Doctor, about, I know my district I work for, they released this to all the schools and all of that. But in reading this, item A, the first one there, just the way the sentence sounds, each student shall be provided an opportunity to participate, Pledge of Allegiance or other patriotic observance each day. So the question that immediately popped into my head was, if my student has an orthodontist appointment and misses the period that we do that in school and then comes to school later, they haven't had that opportunity yet. Does the school have to provide them an opportunity later?
I would say that there is no district probably in the state of Arizona that takes somebody that's been to a medical, a dental appointment in the morning, that they come and stand in the office and say, okay, now you didn't have a chance to have a moment of silence or a Pledge of Allegiance.
Okay.
I don't believe anybody does that.
But the law requires the opportunity.
But then my mind went to West-MEC, because we just heard how we have students that come to our campus at 6:30 in the morning, students that come to our campus at 11 o'clock, students that come to our campus at 1, students that come to our campus at 4, students that come to our campus at 9. Are we gonna have 7 separate Pledge of Allegiance and moment of silence opportunities for each and every one of these different courses and when the students
We're gonna have
arrive?
it at 8 o'clock every morning, and they all have to come then if they wanna do it.
Well, I would like to do that, but like, I'm not a lawyer, and how is a lawyer gonna read that? This is my question.
Okay, so I will ask the principals, because this is one of the discussions that we had, because if they come first thing at 7 o'clock in the morning, that's their first entrance into one of our programs, they should be having a moment of silence because it's the first time they've engaged. If they leave there and they go to their home school, I would doubt if they were repeating the moment of silence or the Pledge of Allegiance. When they come at 1, because they've been at their member district school, we don't at 1 o'clock unless we've changed. Do we have it at 1 o'clock? Do we have a Pledge of Allegiance or a moment of silence at 1 o'clock? Because they've already been engaged. Where the law doesn't address, what about homeschoolers?
I was gonna say, what about homeschool kids that?
It's an issue. The statute says they need to be provided
Holly, somebody?
It needs, the statute says that it needs to be provided within the school day. So within our campus school day, we have to plan for this opportunity to have the moment of silence. So each of our campuses have done that, and within the campus school day, there is the opportunity for moment of silence.
And we received legal counsel that we sent to all of the building principals on the moment of silence to prepare for this being approved in September. I think it's 26th. Do I think we're doing it to the quality that we want and fidelity? Probably not, but we're doing the best that we can on our campuses to abide by this law.
It sounded like to me it was written as if everybody had a traditional school day and they're doing it once in the morning for all the students that showed up.
This is almost all legislation is originally written anyway, but yeah.
Because our school day changes from campus to campus, some of them are
Yeah.
7, 9:30, 10:30.
So I get like in my district, right, a traditional school district, we have our one time a day, and I understand that like if you're not here, you're not here. But the way they wrote it, right, each student shall, right, like, that's gonna get tricky.
It's okay, we're gonna tell them how they can sue the district when they don't get that one opportunity.
No, we did change that. That's coming up.
Okay, that would be a question for clarification. I would like to,
Okay.
for Mrs. Siegel, like, what does that look like for us?
Okay, the next one is hazing. All they did is define and clarified as defined in ARS 13-1215 and 13-1216. Those are criminal statutes. I ran them off. If anybody wants to see them, if you want a copy, I'll be happy to give that to you, but it just made a clarification. And then acts against a student or a group of students was also included and changed. So if you want to see those two statutes, I'll be happy to send them to you in the next month so that you can look through them.
Don't we have a bullying policy?
Yes.
How is hazing different than bullying?
Well, I'll read you.
Hazing is like a physical activity, like what they would do to join a fraternity or a club, or hazing of a football team.
Oh, all right.
Okay,
That's
there's
been a
6
problem.
items here. A person commits hazing by intentionally, knowingly, or recklessly for the purpose of, and that activity, pledging, initiating, holding office, admitting, or
Oh, okay.
affiliating.
All right.
It goes on and on and on.
So hazing is being mean to people we like, and bullying is being mean to people we don't like.
Yep.
Got it. Thank you.
Okay.
Copy 101.
And then on page 17, immunization of students are not required by law. The 2 they put in there was monkeypox and COVID-19 or any variant. So we can't require that as part of a new student coming to our program. Visitors to school, we do have procedures in our exhibits, but permits districts to host parent visits, and districts not permitted to require masking or on the premises. So that really hasn't changed. They have those 2 statements that they've added to the policy.
Sorry.
That's all right.
Dr. Erb, immunization, do we have rules on measles and all those other things?
Yes.
Is that required of our homeschool and charter school students too?
Yes. Can they opt out? The answer is yes. Shelley, you're here. She checks all of the immunization. Her department checks all of the immunization. She can get online to check if a parent forgets and doesn't bring the immunizations when they're registering. But the answer to those are yes. But they can still exempt under Arizona law.
And then that exempt thing is the one when if we do have measles and we say, all right, you can't be here because you're not whatever.
10 days, yep.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Okay, the last one, parental involvement in education. A parent may seek legal remedies. Well, I'm gonna jump ahead, so I'm gonna go back.
Second readings.
Yeah, that's the second reading. So any on the first reading? Any other questions besides getting clarification on the moment of silence that you want me to check on? Okay. So let's go to second reading. In the first reading of parental rights, our involvement in education, the board asked the question, could we modify and change the statement of telling parents they can sue the Western Maricopa Education Center
on any of these violations. So what we came up with is we took out a parent who successfully assets a claim under subsection A of this that may recover declaratory relief, injunctive relief, reasonable attorney fees, and any appropriate relief. I believe any parent, when they do have issues with this, the first thing that they do say is, I'm going to get legal advice or I'm going to sue you. I believe most of them know. Dr. Pingarelli did ask for some clarification. Was it okay to minimize and take out a statutory statement? It is. We can modify it to whatever we feel comfortable with. So the statement we came up, and here in front of you, a parent may seek legal remedies or suit against the school district that violates subsection A of ARS 15143.
I like it.
It was pretty minimal. Legal counsel looked at it and approved it. So that's what we changed in the parental involvement in education, which was pretty thorough and long statutory change. And the second one are the student surveys. There was no changes. We didn't get any feedback on student surveys, and Dr. Spurgeon said we will not be doing a survey that has those 14 items listed. And it just says the superintendent one would have to approve it, then we'd have to send it to the parents ahead of time. You'd have a chance to recluse from taking the survey and opting their child out. So there isn't any other changes. This is a statement that we made that we're not going to include any of those in a survey. With that, this one would take approval as second reading unless you wanted to make any additional changes.
So I think we have an action item for the 4 policies under second reading.
The 2. KB, parent involvement, and student survey. Those are the 2.
But it's 4 documents, it's 3 separate documents.
Right, they're all do that.
Yeah. Any other questions from the board? Are we ready to approve those?
Mr. Straka,
Mr. Kaltenbach.
I move that we approve the items under agenda item 13.
And I'll second that.
Okay, Dr.
As presented
Pingarelli
or
has
whatever.
seconded. Any further discussion? Would anyone like Dr. Erb to read those policies in full?
Yeah. Make it a podcast, Doctor, we can listen to it later. I do have one question before we vote. And it actually pertains to a previous agenda item. Where in the 5 steps of the teacher induction program do we make them read board policy? Because like that survey thing, I sent out a questionnaire to some students last week, and I was like, wait a minute, I gotta look at the list, right? But I knew about the list because I suffered through our first reading of that thing last month, and I'm like, how does a teacher know, right? Like when do we sit them down and go, here's all the things you can't do as a teacher? Because it's crazy.
Okay, you ready for my answer? Come to one of our orientations of new employees. Because of COVID, we missed quite a few employees in training. I've been to every campus except the Northeast. They have 5 new employees that I'll have to train. We've had postponed it 2 or 3 times. We had a meeting set up. The first slide goes through all of our policies, where they can find the policies. The books are in the superintendent's office. I have 2 books in mine. You can go online to ASBA, click on, go to West-MEC, go under Policy Bridge, go all the way. I show them where they can find every policy. And then we have a summary group of policies that pertain to new employees in the employee handbook. And they get a copy of that.
I appreciate that, but it's still like, some of our policies, right, are pretty specific. And it's not out of the realm of possibility for a teacher to think they're doing a good job, right, getting to know their students and ask one of these questions, having not read this particular policy, right? I'm concerned for our teachers. I'm concerned for the fact that like all this policy says that the superintendent's on the hook for this whole deal, right? Like some random teacher asks a question and then parent gets all fussy over the thing.
Okay, so if I'm hearing Chairman Straka, if you would like for human resources to scan all of these policies in. We send a monthly update out.
Sure.
Mrs. Wiley is gonna come to the training. I'm covering conflict of interest, sexual harassment, Title IX, all those in the campuses. I went through the staff review of the new policy, answered questions of the staff that had them. But if you, during the review, if we want to send these 8, we can scan them into an update and say, here are the new policies that were approved by the governing board, and send them out to every one of the employees. We do an update every month. So if that's the request from the governing board, I can scan all these in from the board book, and it'll go out. Now, whether they read them or not would be another question.
I mean,
I bet a lot of people would read them just to to understand, or at least skim them and say, oh, I was going to do a survey. I better not ask this question, or oh, my survey is good. I have a good question.
And then even if you're generally a school email skimmer like Mr. K, right? I'm just like, okay, I got it. But I have a friend named Mr. Severn who's down the hall. He reads every single word. He's going to be the guy, like I imagine Mr. Strake is a little bit like that. He's read every single word, and that we're going to be sitting at lunch. I'm like, hey, I'm going to do a survey with my kids, and then my friend Dave's going to like, dude, did you read that list? It's like, oh, right. Like the more that our teachers know, the more likely we are to be not out of compliance, right? You know, give our teachers a fair shake.
So Chairman Strake, Mr. Kaltenbach, I reviewed the 2 policies, the 3 that you approved, or 2 of them that you approved tonight, on my 2 visits. On Friday, I'll review the parent surveys, and I'll review with them the involvement in education, also the new staff document along with that. If you want me to take these 8 and scan and said this is first reading and look through them, we can scan those new 8 that you just looked at for first reading tonight, and hopefully some of our employees will be able to review them. At least they've had an opportunity to see them.
Yeah.
So I'm okay to do that, because right now, I think these are the only policies that we'll be bringing forth for the year, unless the legislature does something else and sends us another notice that they've modified some. So if that's the recommendation, I'll be happy to do that.
Keep in mind, they also have access to all the board docs available now.
All right, we haven't actually voted.
Yeah.
This should be probably a roll call also, since it's policy.
No, only budget has to be roll call. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, so thank you, Dr. Erb.
Thanks, Dr. Erb.
All right. Moving on to item number 14, bond report.
Fun with numbers.
And I'm excited to announce that Miss Fun with Numbers is going to be here a little past her retirement. So this might not be the last time we see her.
If I may say a thank you to all the presenters that have come before me, their level of expertise. I am here to tell you what the business office does day in and day out, and it is noted in all of these bond reports and the annual financial statement. So to start with, our bond report. This is something that we present to you yearly so that we keep you up to date on what we've been doing with the bond that we've been granted. So in 2012, our voters approved us to go out for a bond for $74.9 million, and again in 2016. Below this on the slide, you will see all of the different buckets that we were going to do and accomplish with those bond dollars. After this, you have always asked us, where has this money gone? What campuses have reaped the benefits from the bond? And this will tell you that Central Campus in fiscal year 13 and 14, we had expenditures of over $7 million from the 2012 bond. Then for our Northeast Campus, for the different years listed from 13 to 15, $28 million. And it gives you a brief description as to what we did with those dollars, whether it was land or building purchase, construction, furniture, fixtures, and equipment, etc. Then you go to the Southwest Campus. They participated in 15 through 20 for fiscal years. And again, this lists all the expenditures that we had at the Southwest Campus. just to point out, even though that the dollars came from the bond from 2012, or whether it came from 2016, it is all in one bucket. At Northwest Campus, we had a total of 58 million, and again, from fiscal year 15 all the way through 21, we had expenditures, and it pulled from the bond bucket. Our Southeast Campus, which is our new site, in fiscal 21 is where we purchased the land for the 7.9 million. To give you an update on our balances then, our cash balance is the 54 million figure. Outstanding, we have 144 million that we can sell and further use. It's probably a lot to digest, but in fiscal 22, we only had one expenditure for $300. So it has just sat for a little bit, but it is still there and available.
Have we sold the bonds?
Not the 144 million, no. The others have been sold, and the expenses in the previous slides have told you what we've spent it on.
I'm sorry, where's the 144 at? Is it listed on here?
That is our outstanding balance, if you will, of what we have yet we can sell.
100, what was our last bond of?
2016,
And how much did we?
141 million.
141 million.
So 144 is our bond capacity?
Is what we have left to be able to sell.
But if we only approved 141 million, how can we sell 144?
Because we've got an increased value.
Jack, go ahead.
Okay, real quickly, we have 54 million. The outstanding, bond outstanding, we have a debt. And I have a report that I just received this last week. From the first one, we still owe $20 million from the first bond. The second one, paid for that bond, same first one, is another $20 million. Because we did it over 20 years, we still owe on the first bond that was 74.9 million. For the other bond, we can't pay it off because we compressed it to a 10-year sale because we saved $43 million. The outstanding as of 144, I'm not sure that's totally accurate on this slide, but I do have a report that I can go through with you. Technically, we have $54 million left in the first and second bond.
This is the cash that we have right now.
Right.
Available.
So we may have a debt of 144, but I'd have to check that.
Okay, so we owe 144 on our bonds that we've sold.
Correct.
And then 54 million is what we're still
We have in the
selling.
bank.
We have that in the bank.
And we've sold that.
That, the 54 million, is that our M&O savings account?
No, that's not our reserves. Bond and soft capital and capital funds are two separate funds.
What, we have those buckets that we put in the voting pamphlet. How much of that 54 sits in which bucket? Because like there's like we can't. I mean, we can move percentages, but but generally we have to spend them out of the bucket that they're in. Do we know how much of the 54
Chairman Straka, Mr. Kalmbach, we can get that breakdown because so much was for buildings, so much for land, so
Right.
much for furniture equipment. We can get you that breakdown.
So, my
Mr.
question.
Chair?
Yes, Dr. Pingarelli?
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Herb. Can we just get an update on that and just a document that clarifies all that again, or just update the information, number one. And number two, I think with reallocation of money from bond, if I'm correct, you can move about 10% or up to 10% for other expenses, but I don't think you can exceed that. So all the buckets that were defined have to be in that. Is that correct?
That is correct, Dr. Pingarelli.
Thank you.
No, you can. You got 10%. He's asking, does he have 10%? We have 10% that
So
we
like
can
in
move from
this
one.
example in the bottom right-hand corner, we can spend on the sidewalks, utilities, anywhere from about 6.3 to 7.6 million.
Okay, I don't know if you could percent-wise do that, because it's accumulation of your total bond amount. So our second bond, each bond is separated out.
Right, so that's the 141 million,
Right.
so I can 10% that 6.9 either way.
I think you can do the 10% of the 141 either way.
Oh, so I could
So you could
totally
move-
not
you
do construction.
So you could move the construction, you could either add 14 million into that or take 14 million out of
It's
it.
from the total amount of bonds of $141 million. You got 10% that you could move to land or to furniture and equipment.
Okay.
I just got the report yesterday, and our capacity, as I showed Dr. Spurgeon, our capacity in 2 years is going to be close to $200 million. Because we're 4,000 square miles, and we have 14 member districts, so it's spread out. And if you just received your tax statement for this, I showed Dr. Spurgeon, like mine's $29 a year, and CJ looked at his, he's in North Peoria, it's $39 a year. So our bond abilities to build future buildings or go out for a bond in the future, we're so much less because we cover such a large geographical area.
Of the, was it 54 million left over? Did we spend all of the first bond, and so that 54 is what's left
All
of
second bond, correct.
the 2016 one? Okay.
So I wanted to, because as you talk about bond capacity, we have 54 million. How much do we have in our M&O account, the savings account? No.
Like our capital?
Our capital account.
As last year was presented, around $40 million.
So does it make sense for us as a board to open up capacity to pay off some of those last 20-year bonds? Because we have 40 million in the bank, 54 million here, that's almost $100 million. We're paying interest on the 54 million. Does it make sense to provide capacity in the future? And could we buy out a couple of years? I think they're $6 to $7 million. 20 years is probably $6 million a year. We could buy 3 years out for $20 million. I mean, is that something to consider in the future?
My big question is the interest rates right now are gonna kill us. Versus paying off money that might be at a very low interest rate and having to rebond it, maybe a double
Well, what are we
interest rate.
getting, what is our,
We'll have to look and
what are
see.
they paying on our $40 million?
I'd have to go get the information, and
We'll
we
get that.
anticipated
Comparison.
this conversation. I talked to Brian Lundberg from Steeple, and he sent me the information the other day. We can't pay off our first bond of $20 million. So if you want to pay off the bonds, our first payment can't be till 2023, and it'd be $20 million. The next payment to pay off the bonds and pay it down is 2025. It's another $20 million.
The first bond or the second bond?
The first bond. The second bond we can't pay off.
Because it's 10 years. The first one, it's all based on, there's a certain number of years we have to wait from the issue.
2023 is when you could pay the first 20 million if you wanted to use your reserves, and then 2025, it's benchmarked. I have the documents in on my desk. And I can.
Mr. Chairman, that would be an appropriate question to send to Mr. Lundberg.
Right.
You know,
That's what- and Jack-
and look at the interest rates and all that,
Yep.
rather than take up tonight's meeting.
No, I just, that's what if we could get that information maybe for a future agenda item.
He knows.
He knows much better than we do.
An agenda item in the future.
All right. Very good. Thank you. All right, you're back.
I'm back. I'm still with you.
That was fast. Double duty.
What I would like to present to you next, before I get into the meat of it, I'm sure you've already been very anxious, fun with numbers, and you've already read all of the numbers that are on the annual financial report, the Excel document
All of
that's
them.
in your book.
Yeah.
Yes, I know you have. But what I do want to point out that the report doesn't show, all of that is as a result of everybody that works in the business office. All of the hours that we spend doing our jobs and staying compliant, what you're seeing on the AFR is a result of everybody's efforts. So to dive right into it, what I'm presenting today is like an autopsy. These are the expenses that happened in fiscal 22, so last year, if you will. We have three major funds for the school district. We have M&O, which is maintenance and operation. We have capital, and then we have the classroom site fund. Here we show all the different expenditures out of those three buckets, totaling the 45 million. So getting into a deeper dive for the M&O, the maintenance and operations. What we've done here is broken up all those expenditures, and we are telling you how much in each category we have spent for the total of the 33 million. So for instruction is the 6,246,702. I won't read every number. I'm sure you guys have already read all of this in your packet. But we list it by instruction, member district.
We put this in the packet. We just got the regular sheets.
It's in your board book? Is this not in your board book?
This is just the budget documents are in the board book.
We don't need it right now, but if we could get this PowerPoint sent to us later.
We can do that.
Thank you.
So member districts is the 12 million. The adult programs for the salaries and benefits is the 1.1 million. The student services, the counselors and the ADM, the 1.7 million. Curriculum and PD staff, professional development staff, expenses there were 2.5 million. General administration, 1.3 million. School administration, 1.7 million. Business, IT, HR, and the PR department, 2.9 million. And the facilities, the grounds custodial, 3.5 million. The M&O fund, the maintenance and operations, is what pays all of our utilities, all of our salaries, and you can see the breakout here of how we spent that money for last year. Moving on to the next is classroom site fund. Did I miss a slide? No. Okay, classroom site fund. That was broken up into three areas. Base salary, $133,483. Performance pay is the $201,609. And professional development, which is the $179,199. We are not required to break this out into the three funds like we have in the past. It all comes in under Fund 010, which is Classroom Site Fund, and then you are used to us telling you how much is in the base salary, how much is in professional pay or the performance pay, and how much in PD. We no longer have to do that, but we're doing that so that we can show you how we have spent those dollars. Then into our capital expenditures, the 11 million figure. On the right, we tell you what the breakdown was of all of those expenditures. And do keep in mind that this is what we call the capital fund. So it pays for our textbooks, furniture and equipment and vehicles, technology equipment, building and construction, and our member district capital. So for our textbooks and instructional aids that we provide for all of our programs, for all of our students, that was the $969,075. Furniture and equipment and our vehicles, that was the $865 figure. Technology, so the computers and the hotspots and everything that goes along with all of our technology, $920,000. Building and construction, the $6.6 million. We bought a piece of land, just keep that in mind. Then our member district capital, the $1.8 million.
What's an example of member district capital?
Stephen, we provide our member districts with money that they can put into their program and purchase things out of capital. So it builds their capacity to teach their programs.
Industry aligned to capital, so for a welding program, they could buy, capital, a welder or those types of things. It's part of the funding grant.
A new fridge for culinary.
Absolutely, yeah.
Run the program.
Moving on to a new fund, the auxiliary expenses, our Fund 525. We pay things such as the student aids. So when we provide a kit, if you will, for all of our students who participate in esthetician, hairstyling, welding, we provide a kit for them to start off with. This is the bucket that it comes from, and we spent $438,323. Then dual enrollment, where we pay for the dual enrollment tuitions, $21,000. Professional development, $87,000.
How much of the 438 is captured through student fees? Do you know that number?
That is where this bucket
So
comes from.
that's the final
Yes,
number?
yes. So that comes from their paying for their programs, the tuitions and things that we charge and the parents pay. Next slide, here are some expenses from other funds not previously mentioned. Our Civic Center, the facilities use, we had expenditures of $125,143. Then our community school, which we call our adult programs, $875,000 is what we had in expenses, such things like textbooks, materials, and supplies. Tax credit, which you're all familiar with, we don't get funded on, but these are what the taxpayers choose to elect. And we had expenses come out of that for $36,863. The majority of that, or almost all of that, is really spent on CTSO expenses, whether it's the fees, the travel, or the lodging. Gifts and donations, we had expenditures of $74,113, and those dollars go towards scholarships that we provide, supplies, testing materials for the MA program. Now it says through private grants. I just want to tell you that it's really gifts and donations. Don't confuse it with a true definition of a grant. CTE projects, these are our programs that have enterprise programs. The autos program has enterprise. Hairstyling, they have enterprise. And even our vet through our pet adoption, that's an enterprise account. We had expenses of $33,297. Those dollars go back to the program as the enterprise spends them. To do an oil change, West-MEC has already paid for the oil, but the enterprise then pays to replenish those supplies that they have used. So it's kind of a little cycle that those go through. Last, one of the last slides, you have asked previously to do a recap of the last 5 years. This one shows the last 5 years of M&O, maintenance and operation. Again, salaries, utilities, maintenance, that's this fund. So we have gone up since last year. Remember, we have increased our salary base, we have increased our salaries, but we've increased our employees. Also, everything costs more, thanks to COVID. So hence why we have a higher dollar amount than we did for last year.
Mrs. Godley? Go back a slide. My guess is if you ran this back to 02, you would see an almost linear growth.
Yes.
Minus the dip in 2021 that was COVID related.
Yes.
And so actually, if you kind of extrapolate 18, 19 as a line to 22, it's on that same almost straight line, minus the little COVID dip in there.
To your point, we've added programs.
Right.
We've added staff.
Yeah.
with additional programs, you get additional supplies. So everything increases as West-MEC grows.
And we've also added districts, Tolleson and whatnot, that add more to our satellite students population and all that, so.
So really, it's kind of a step-by-step chart to see the growth of West-MEC. If we're gonna have growth, we're gonna have higher expenditures. But that means we're improving, we're doing more for our students. The last slide, again, is the 5-year comparison for the capital account. The big spike between fiscal 21 and 22 was we purchased land. So don't.
I was thinking we got more money from the state. It's like, oh, wow. We're doing good.
There are that giving of money.
Well, but we did though, they did change the way they funded the DAA in the previous legislative cycle. So we got more for 22-23 than we did.
Yeah, a slight
There was more.
Oh, so next year we're gonna even have more?
I don't know. Not a legislator.
Before they hatch.
Yep.
So the purchase of the property was Thomas and 101?
I don't have an address, but it was.
Was it Algodon or the airport?
Increase there because of bond capacity. You had so much to buy land. We bought 30 acres next to Central Campus out of Capitol.
Okay, I didn't know which one it was.
We bought out of bond money.
Out of bond, yes.
So with that, even though I have rushed through this, and it's not midnight yet, but I do want to stress, all of this is really as a result of everybody in my department working every day, paying the bills, paying the salary, purchasing all the equipment, and keeping everything in line. That's how we can present all of these numbers to you in this brief summary. We are required to formally admit the AFR report, and we do that after you approve it for tonight's meeting, and then that becomes public record. So what I ask now is if you have any questions. If you don't, if you would please approve.
Yeah, the only question I had is, this was all the expenses, and I was just curious. I saw for adult ed, we had 1.1 million in salaries, and then another 875,000 in expenses. What I didn't see in here was how much in tuition did adult education students, did I miss that?
No, Jack's working on that right now. Great question. He's pulling that data together right now.
It is a great, Chairman Strick, members of the board, it is a great question. Stephen and I are meeting with the adult ed director, Lizette, and we're going to go through income, what comes from FAFSA, what comes from VA, and see what our balance is. We're growing programs, we have wait lists. We have covered and supported the adult program to get it going in the past. So we have a meeting on the 18th. Dr. Spurgeon walked in today and I was meeting with one of the business departments saying, can you break these into a 2-month period to see what the income is and then compare it to salaries and what's going out. So we'll have a future report for you once Stephen and I get an opportunity to have that discussion.
And maybe if you could, when you get around to that kind of thing, could we, break out adult ed and, student services, and if, I think the START Center, if we're still doing the START Center, with that kind of same thing, kind of what's coming in, what's going out, and how do they make sense?
Okay.
Thanks. You knew I was going to ask that question. Yes, sir.
I move that we approve the annual financial report.
Second.
All right, it's been moved by Mr. Kay, seconded by Mr. Ramirez. Any other questions? Great job, by the way.
Yes.
Great job to you and the department.
I'm sure somebody will carry on the legacy of fun with numbers for you.
Any other questions? Any questions on the phone?
No.
No.
All right, I'll call for the question. All in favor of approving as presented, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Very good job, thank you. And you'll send us the PowerPoint.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. All right. Strategic plan goals for 22-23, Mr. Wakefield.
Straka, members of the board, Superintendent Spurgeon. It was intentional that I finished the show tonight, because really what I'm here to do is to celebrate all the good things that are going on at West-MEC. And as you've heard throughout multiple presentations, this is our strategic plan. These are the things that we're doing that are aligned to the goals that we have set. So is that when I came to you in August, I gave my annual update about the plan, the creation of the plan, the bridging strategies, which were the goals for the year, the metrics that we had set, and then the accomplishment of those goals. And we talked about how we got there, and we celebrated the good work of all the employees. While that was going on, starting in May, we began to look at some data. I went back and surveyed all staff at the all-staff meeting. Some of you attended that, were a part of that. And then I went to the community table. The community table are the champions of the strategic plan, district leadership, campus leadership, department leaders, and directors, surveying them as to what they believed were the critical next steps in the strategic plan for the 11 remaining goals. Then I came to you and made the presentation in August, and following that, sent a survey out to you with very similar questions, asking you to prioritize some of those initiatives, the 11 remaining goals. And then we took that data as a group and then compared them to the superintendent's goals. And through that process, I communicated with you at the recommendation of one of the board members to create a white paper or a summary of the strategic plan, at which you have received a couple different times. So the intent of tonight is to recommend 3 goals that you've already heard about through the different presentations. And so I'll take a moment and share some of those. As was talked about, one of the important components was this vertical articulation, that the superintendent's goals were aligned to the strategic initiatives of the campuses, of the organization, and then that flowed down to the tactical plans that occurred in departments, at campuses, and throughout the organization. And I can say tonight that we have done that. So coming to you tonight, we have 3 what we call priority bridging strategies. These priority bridging strategies essentially are goals, but they are the priority initiatives for the year, and we think that they will be the bridge to the future of what West-MEC will be. And the first is the continuation of the industry-recognized high-value credentials. I already spoke about tonight was the importance of going from 78% to 83%, knowing we're going to be moving beyond. And as Mr. Welsh shared, there was some continued work that we need to be doing there, and so this will be some of the work that we continue on. The second priority is that of building community partnerships. CJ talked about that as he shared the 3 different types of partnerships that we have at West-MEC. The impressions, the engagements, and the strategic partnerships. It's how we bring people in from industry and business to West-MEC so that they know what we are. They either know us or they don't know us. We have the impression that we hope that they know us. For their intentional engagement with advisory councils, the industry commission, the alliance that we've already talked about. And we know that by building and continuing to build these partnerships, it will have future impact to work-based learning, which is another of our initiatives and a priority that you have indicated in the past. So that's goal number 2, that's a priority. And the third that you can see is employee growth and care. And this essentially was talked about through Dr. Erb's presentation with the work that he's doing with a comparative analysis. It's developing this culture of growth and care. How do we recruit? How do we train? How do we retain? How do we develop our staff? How do we compensate? It's all of those components that you've heard about tonight. This final goal really is a multi-year goal because it is so comprehensive and has so many different components. So those are the 3 goals that we have that you've already heard about tonight that we're asking for your recommendation and approval for. Although I could share many more things, I think that you've heard much of the good work that we have done. But with that, I'll be happy to stand for any questions and ask for your approval.
Questions from the board?
Mr. Stricka? I move that we approve the strategic plan goals as presented.
And that's the 3 goals at the last page.
Yes, sir.
I will second that.
All right. Any questions? Call for the question. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, calendar of events. You can see the events coming up. It's funny, I have a Topgolf event in Scottsdale on 11/3. But it's at 6 o'clock.
You can go to both. Let's just drive all the way across the valley.
It's on the agenda.
It's on the agenda item.
Some conferences coming up, future agenda items. I think we talked about, talking about the bond opportunity for 2023. Any other future agenda items, Mr. Caldwell?
Yeah, in our, Mr. Guy's presentation on utilization of our facilities, it occurred to me that when you start using a school from 6 to 10, right, 16 hours a day, that's like a little extra wear and tear that, right, like normal schools aren't subjected to. I'm also thinking about like difficulties of things. I think about when my school, because when the custodians show up, well, we have teachers in classrooms like, almost 24 hours a day. So when does a custodian mop a hallway or clean out a garbage can when we've got classes going all over the place? So my thought, I would be really interested to hear, and maybe Mr. Heath or someone, right, like what are we doing for, like I know you worked on a 5, 10, 15-year maintenance plan. Like, where are we on that? Does that change if we have classes going in a classroom, for 16 hours a day? What does our electrical, like all those kind of things, right? Are we using more HVAC or not, or, right? I think at one point when you first started working with us, Mr. Heath, you presented a dollars per square foot electrical cost for all of the buildings on the various campuses. We've added a bunch more buildings. That might be an interesting thing for the board also. I remember that this building was terribly the worst, and probably still is. But like those kind of things, because when we're gonna, like I'm all in on using our facility to the maximum, taxpayers and all that. Let's use it as much as possible. But at the same time, we have to be stewards of the facility. And if we're abusing the facility, or what's our plan to make sure that facility is still functional 10, 15, 100 years from now, given that we're using it harder than it maybe was originally designed.
Maybe what would be helpful is if we could dive into a couple of campuses. Are we fully utilizing all the classrooms, all 16 hours? Because that's what the board probably would want to know from when would we need to bond again, because we're using the rooms 16 hours a day. Or is the campus open 16 hours and only a few rooms are being used 16 hours a day?
And that's a question I had for Jared too. I was gonna ask if there's a pie chart or a graph that shows building utilization per day or days of the week. I mean, yeah, throughout a single day and then throughout the days of the week.
We had something like that a couple of years ago.
Mm-hmm.
That was very interesting, because then also we have the community rentals.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't want to dig too much into it. So we can certainly, more discussion on facilities and utilization.
So that's coming, Mr. Ramirez. That'll be in the final analysis of my superintendent goal. You'll get a schematic that'll show you the utilization. But then this also will spin off and do some more long-range planning You know, first we have to use what we've been given to be good stewards of our finances and our facilities, notwithstanding overuse and overworking those facilities. But then, once we know we've got those maximized facilities there, then what's our next step of moving to?
Yeah, we have 2 pieces of land we bought. When do we start?
Exactly what we're asking for.
Oh, no, I was showing you. I'm done. Thank you.
On the phone?
Wait till you're done.
Mr. Chairman, I'd just like to welcome C.J. Williams back. Good to see him back as part of our staff.
Dr. Pingarelli, future agenda items?
Nothing for me tonight. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right, anything else? Dr. Erb?
Chairman Straker, just to let you know, working with the budget, working with the business department and with our consultant, usually we wait till after January or February to bring back a revision of our current budget. We're going to be bringing that back to you in November. There's additional resources that we believe we can capture from ADE and in our budget, so I didn't want you to be surprised that it'll be on our next agenda.
All right. Hearing nothing else, we can stand adjourned at 7:05. Thank you, everybody, for staying.